It's direct awareness without reflection or comparison to our history. Also, there's pure presence. This is the beingness quality of the absolute, the here-ness, the nowness of it, the immediacy of it. And then it has pure love. And the pure love is an objective love. So it's not a transactional love the way that among humans we experience love. If you're my friend or if you're someone I'm in relationship with, then there's love for you. If you're someone I don't know, then there's not. So this is a love that flows freely to all of us. There's no qualification. We don't need to earn it. And nothing we've ever done will prevent us from making contact with this love. The other function of the absolute is the unmanifest. And that's characterized visually as a darkness, incredible darkness that we would call black. And it has its primary qualities are absence, what traditionally is called emptiness in Buddhism, also peace, deep, magnificent peace, and profound stillness. This is a stillness that underlies both silence and noise, or silence and activity. So that's the underlying. And the source of the absolute I as characterize the source of the absolute is the experience of cessation. Cessation is a necessary component for awakening in the Theravadan school. Cessation is the ceasing of all mentality and materiality. It's a dreamless sleep, complete blackness, but it's a combination. Cessation's a combination of absence, emptiness, peace, and stillness. So when we contact cessation, when awareness and consciousness contact cessation, it's very, very pleasant. It feels very soothing and inviting, and we're drawn into it. It feels like a tractor beam when we get close to it, and it will pull awareness and consciousness into cessation. So the primary practices we'll be doing today are Upeka, which is the Pali term for equanimity, and then also we'll use Karuna, which is the Pali term for compassion. So equanimity, Upeka, is about deep acceptance. People often think of it as having some kind of peaceful neutrality. That's the effect of equanimity, but equanimity is acceptance. As humans, most of our suffering is tied to our resistances. So when we have an event happen and we don't want the event or we want it to be different, we resist the moment we're in. And this is what keeps us from resting in Upeka. Upeka, equanimity, is a quality of the pure love of the absolute, as is Karuna, compassion. So these are not human emotions or qualities we need to manufacture in any way. They're always here because they're a function of the absolute. They're without condition. They're without birth and death. That means they're always present, always have been, always will be. So that gives us some comfort that we're not having to create these. We're simply tuning into what's already here. One of the ways I talk about using Upeka, equanimity, in daily life is, imagine if I handed you a remote control that controlled time. You could pause, rewind, or fast forward. Any time in your life that you would reach for that remote, meaning you want to change the moment you're in, that's a moment where you're experiencing some resistance. There's something about the moment you don't want. I want it to be different, in some other way. So part of the practice, this is an off-the-cushion practice of Upeka. We silently simply repeat acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. And that allows us to settle and open to the fullness of the moment. When we work with compassion, Karuna is often taught that it removes or takes away suffering, or what we call dukkha in Theravada Buddhism. Dukkha simply means dissatisfactoriness, when we're dissatisfied with this moment or this experience. The Buddha often talked about this as the two arrows. The first arrow is the actual event that's taking place, and the second arrow is the judgment, the commentary, the reaction to the first arrow or the precipitous event. Examples of a second arrow would be something like, I don't deserve this. Another would be, this always happens to me. And a third might be, why me? So you can see it's looking at the event and taking it as something unwanted is being thrust upon us, rather than this is what's happening. So compassion doesn't take away suffering. It doesn't remove suffering. What it does when we are intimate with our discomfort is it invites the tender, loving support of compassion, of the absolute, to hold the situation, to hold us, to let us be more tender in this moment, to let us meet the moment more fully. Because for most of us humans, our most important life lessons were learned when we, in my language, ran headfirst into a brick wall. And I can say as a parent, there were times when I tried to soften or prevent my children from running headfirst into the brick wall of life. And what I discovered was the times that I was successful preventing them from this, what I could see as a tragedy, they found another way to run and hit that wall because they needed that life lesson. And if you look at your life, a lot of the important life lessons you've experienced were ones where you were absolutely hitting that brick wall head first, and you learned not to do it again. So part of what compassion affords us is the ability to be with whatever is neutral or unpleasant in our life. The events that we find to be pleasurable, we don't have any problem staying close to those. But things that are neutral, really, we care, we don't care, it's interesting, not interesting, we can tend to minimize or want to reject those. And of course, the situations we don't like or that don't benefit us. So what we'll do today is I want to go through some of the areas in today's world that create disturbance, that create dukkha in humans. And we're going to move into the felt sense. So I'm going to guide you through feeling your discomfort around some of these issues in life. And we're going to stay with the discomfort until we can move in time slightly before the discomfort to the vulnerability that was activated. And this is important because the vulnerability is what triggers our automatic responses, where we go into denial, we go into whatever strategy we have to get around the discomfort of whatever we're experiencing. And by being with the vulnerability openly, so we're meeting it with acceptance, equanimity, and we're meeting it with the tenderness of the absolute. And that is going to let us make contact with and open to steeping in the absolute itself. So we'll be able to make contact with the qualities that are authentic rather than the uh, emotions that are mimicking the absolute. So, for example, when we feel powerless, I don't have any power to change or affect whatever's going on here. We often will turn in a reaction towards extreme anger or hatred. We want to eliminate whatever the causation is, whether it's a person or an event, we want them gone. And conversely, if we're working with something like our anger, our unhappiness at what's going on, that can open us to the vulnerability of weakness. And through the vulnerability of weakness, that can open into the absolute, into the quality of strength, authentic strength. So we're going to work with these, and I'm just going to do what I call a guided meditation. So the way to work with these is just, we'll start the meditation and just let me guide you. You don't have to see, hear, or feel what I'm describing. What I'm describing is what I'm perceiving in our field. So it's here. And just let yourself be impacted by what I'm talking about or naming in our field. And just let yourself, imagine you're in a drift boat and I've got the rope on shore. I'm just walking your boat down the shore along this stream. Just let yourself relax in the boat and let me do the work, and then we'll see what happens. So start by taking some deep belly breaths, really filling your lungs, abdomen, all the way down to genitals. I include the genitals because in spiritual practice, we need to include all of us. And often as spiritual practitioners, we tend to not touch into the genital area. It's sort of forbidden. So it's important that we include all of us in these deep breaths to start our meditation. So really let yourself deeply relax into your seat. Fully accepting all activity that's happening in body and mind. Again, acceptance. It's not important what's here. It's important we accept what's here. So start by bringing awareness to the hara. This is one of the chakras from the yogic tradition, about 2 finger widths below the navel and 2 or 3 finger widths in from the surface of the skin. This is a natural grounding spot in our body. The hara tends to be non-conceptual, so we can sit in a place of deeper silence. If you can, breathe in and out of the hara, feeling that inner seat, the here-ness of the hara. On the next in-breath, invite awareness into the heart area. By that I mean the chest cavity itself. And we're going to be inviting Upeka equanimity by silently repeating acceptance. Acceptance. With the intention to accept everything that's occurring in our perception, awareness, or experience. We're not filtering, we're not creating a hierarchy, we're simply welcoming, accepting whatever's here. You might feel a little tenderness in your heart area, a supple softness, a willingness to receive. Breathe into the heart area, feeling that deep, unqualified acceptance. Acceptance. On the next in-breath, invite awareness to the center of the forehead. This is called the wisdom eye in Theravada Buddhism, the Dharma eye in the Zen tradition. And this is an important organ of perception. For those of you who have inner sight in your meditation, this is the source, the function of that inner sight. The wisdom eye also cultivates and lets us develop deeper intuitive wisdom and understanding. If possible, breathe in and out of the wisdom eye. You may be feeling some energetic movement. Some people can feel a pressure like a thumb pressing on their forehead. For others, it may be a kind of swirling energy. Others report a sense of something like an eyelid fluttering to open. Or you may be experiencing nothing at all. Any of these are just fine. Please surrender to this practice. Soften any resistance. Put aside any objections or qualifications. Bring your wholeness, your wholesomeness to this practice. On the next in-breath, invite awareness to the top of the head, the crown chakra. The crown chakra is another chakra in the yogic system. This is a very important portal or doorway. In the practices of Theravada Buddhism, when we practice what are called the formless jhanas or formless absorptions, awareness and consciousness enter and exit through the crown chakra. These formless jhanas are referred to as realms, and that's the experience of them, is that we journey to another realm. We can also receive downloads of information from the Absolute through the crown chakra. So breathe in to the crown chakra, feeling an important portal. Some people report a kind of pressure or energy phenomenon. If that's here, just accept it. If you're not feeling anything, just accept that. Now maintaining this smooth state of mind, recall a recent memory where the events of the world were troubling or disturbing to you. For some people, it's issues around social justice. Others have passion around climate change, or perhaps another area snags you. So recall a memory when you had a strong reaction, a negative reaction to some event in the world. Sense into your heart area, feel the discomfort, the tension, the upset, the rejection. I don't want this. This is wrong. Whatever judgment you have, feel the judgment. Feel deeply how painful it is to hold this rejection. Notice in your reaction, is there anger? If they were here, I'd want to punch them in the arms, step on their toes. I wouldn't mind watching them trip and fall. That would be okay with me. That's what anger looks like. And hatred is, I wish they were vaporized off the planet. I wish they didn't exist. Hatred can be hot. I want to break something. Hatred can be cold, like the assassin. So feel into what's here for you, your reaction. It's okay if it's hatred. All humans experience hatred from time to time. Don't get caught up in a spiritual ideal. That's how we get into spiritual bypass. So feel the anger, feel the hatred. Feel that energy, the potency. You can tell with anger, you feel a kind of strength. You got more power in your arms and legs. And with hatred, there's just that, it's done. It's over. Now move a little forward in time to your reaction to this world event and feel the vulnerability when you first were exposed to that information. The first reaction, oh no. Feel the loss, the confusion, the uncertainty. Feel the fear. Notice where in your body you're feeling these emotions or sensations. You might feel a weakness like ice water in your arms and legs. You may feel weak, crushed, even hopeless in being with the vulnerability. But stay with it. Stay with, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. Now, while feeling this vulnerability, start silently repeating acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Just keep repeating acceptance as you stay with the vulnerability. Acceptance. This is what's here. If you're feeling that ice water in your arms and legs, a sign of fear, acceptance. If you're feeling a heaviness in the pit of your stomach, acceptance. If you're feeling confusion, acceptance. This brings us more fully into this moment. Acceptance. Now shift your attention slightly to the discomfort, the suffering of vulnerability. I don't like feeling vulnerable. I don't like feeling exposed. I don't like sharing my confusion with others. Feel the pain, the suffering of all that, and more. Don't turn away, just accept the suffering, the discomfort, the unease. You may feel in your experience a slight bit of tenderness, kind of supple tenderness in our field. Tenderly supporting, embracing this moment of vulnerability, of reactivity, of confusion. So once again, acceptance. Acceptance of the appearance of compassion, helping to tenderly hold our vulnerability. Stay with the vulnerability, with deep acceptance and the loving tenderness of the Absolute. Those of you with inner sight may be noticing the vast blackness opening in our field. The deepest, richest blackness you've ever seen or witnessed. And smooth. If you could run your fingers over the blackness, it would feel smooth like black velvet, soft and inviting, welcoming. And with the black vastness, you may be noticing the quality of absence or emptiness. We might call it no-thingness. There's nothing here. But somehow there's a something too. So feel that absence, that open, vast, void nothingness. Relax into the black nothingness. Opening, letting awareness reach deeply into the black vastness. You may be noticing the quality of stillness that's here. A profound stillness. For some of you, you may be noticing a ringing in your ears. That's one of the signs of the stillness. You don't have to have the ringing in your ears, but I want to normalize it for those of you who are experiencing that. Relax into the peace, the profound peace, stillness, black absence. Notice the peace that's here. A deep, soothing peace. Everything that peace meets becomes peaceful. Let the peace, stillness, and absence meet your vulnerability if they haven't already. Notice how with vulnerability there's an openness, a willingness to receive. Relax trying to control your experience. Let yourself surrender to the black vastness, the deep peace, the void of absence, and the profound stillness. See if you can feel how my words come from stillness and return to stillness. relax any effort a little more. Let yourself surrender, control. Just be right here. Let awareness be drawn a little deeper and deeper still. Surrender into the deep peace, the vast emptiness and stillness. Letting go. Letting yourself be carried deep into the absolute. You may find your mind is quieting. Thoughts are getting quieter. There might be space between thoughts of rich silence, stillness. You may not know exactly who you are in this moment, and that's fine. Just be the awareness, making contact and experiencing. Feel how the peace and stillness are drawing awareness and consciousness deeper into the black void, the nothingness. Let awareness be drawn deeper still. Feeling the potency of peace and stillness together. Peace, stillness and absence are the power of the absolute, the force of all creation and manifestation begins deeply in nothing. This nothing we call cessation. It's the embracing and welcoming of all perception, of all reality, material and mental, ceases, stops. Feel the potency of that potential. The unlimited power. This potency has created universes. We'll now sit in silence together for about 15 minutes, and then I'll ring the bell. Before I ring the bell, I want you from the place of this immense vastness, deep peace, profound stillness, to let the issue, the triggering issue that you encountered early in our practice today, bring that forth. See what it's like for that issue to arise from this vast, peaceful place. Notice what, if any, reactivity there is in your body. Notice how you're less reactive. You can still see the issue or the problem, but you're not overwhelmed by your vulnerability. You can feel the stability and the power of resting in the absolute and meeting a difficult event of the world. Coming from this place of authentic power, we're not coming from deficit. We're coming from more of a completeness, a wholeness. We can see more options, and we don't have to carry as much stress. If you're in touch with authentic power of the absolute, let that land in your experience. Feel it fully. Feel it throughout your body. Feel the great capacity it affords. I'd like to open it up now for any comments on how the meditation was for you, and of course, any questions you have. Sure, John.
So if we're tuning into this emptiness that leads to compassion, is that something that needs to be developed over time, or can we just get it and then it's there? Because I feel like over my practice time, it's happened over years rather than just glimpsing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really helpful if we can do a retreat on this. I do offer retreats on the Brahma Viharas. We call them the heart abodes, um, divine abodes, and it does help to work with them in that particular way because it's like it attunes us, it opens us in the transmission of the retreat. Yeah, so it is helpful. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
sure. Kate.
I just wanted to add in that there are a lot of fabulous talks from your retreat at Cloud Mountain on the Brahma Viharas.
Yeah, on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of recordings on all these different practices. So yes, one can follow along with those. Right. So what was it like? How did it work? My students will know if you don't ask questions or comments, then I start another meditation. Mitchell?
Yeah, that's a good point. You might start another one. And that's okay. That sounds like a good time. Um, yeah, I find that when making contact with that vulnerability at the start, there's there's a lot more of like a tension, even like physically. There's a sort of a tension in the body.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, you
Making
mean
contact.
tension, not attention.
Yeah, tension.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and the tension in the mind and the body are a lot more, it feels like kind of like stiff and sort of like rigid, and it
Right.
feels like there's almost like sort of an unwillingness to feel it. There's kind of like a wanting to get away,
Yeah,
from
that's the
that.
resistance you're feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And so then after doing the opening up practice and going back to it, it just felt like uh there's a felt sense that it's a lot like it can just be there, and there's not really the desire to escape and run away. It can just sort of merge with the rest of the openness. So that's pretty great.
Oh, good, good. Sounds lovely. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Anybody else? No questions or comments, eh? John?
I'll share again. I don't mean to hog the
No,
time or
you're
anything,
good.
but there's something you said that I'm reminded of Ajahn Sumedho. He's got this saying, it's like this. So you could
Okay.
always, if you're angry, you can always just say, it's like this to be angry. It's like this to be sad. It's like this. It's always like this. I That seems like it kind of fits in with what you were saying. So I'm like, if that can be helpful to anyone, I thought I'd just throw
Hmm.
that in there.
Yeah, it's a form of acceptance, right? Lynn?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Um, Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And usually when I get up in the morning, I try to do some devotional reading and a little bit of meditation before I dive into the news cycle, but I got the cart before the horse this morning, so I had a very specific thing to work with in the meditation that was kind of fresh.
Good.
And so I feel almost guilty that I almost forgot about this meeting, and then I remembered it, and I went, oh, I'll go to that, and that'll make me feel better.
Good. Did it?
But it definitely helped me to smooth out a little bit and get perspective and get some equanimity and some compassion. So thank you very much.
Good. You're welcome. Jackie?
I first of all, I feel like I'm still somewhat in that state.
Hmm?
I found it really powerful to just drop everything
Yeah.
and just completely relax into the oneness of being, really.
Hmm. Beautiful.
So it's such a powerful state, and it's just such a, well, the word blessing comes to mind, that we're capable of dropping it all and just resting in this oneness, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an undividedness. I didn't talk about that, but absolutely there's an undivided oneness. This is what we talk about as non-duality. You can't make two. It's a oneness that can't be divided.
And to go back to that source of our being, really, and just rest there, it's just such a kind of relief. I think for me, when I was exploring the reactive states, it really what comes up for me with a lot of what's going on. For me, it was that moment when Trump called Newsom new scum. It just kind of broke my heart that that's where we're at. So it's really more grief, and then all the fire. I mean, it's just grief at what's happening.
Right.
But at the same time, the vastness that's holding all of it, to really be with that was just very powerful. So thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Kate?
I don't know how much sense this will make, but I had the experience of when you were just walking us further and further down, and you talked about going deep inside the absolute. And as I experienced that as a visual person, I saw myself just as a karmic seed. And it felt like, I don't know how to quite it felt like it was undifferentiated. I was aware of being a part of, as well as I felt like it was a deep merger.
Yeah.
And that's what made things get still, because I don't think I've been still a moment in my life. And that felt extraordinarily still.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, now still's available to you.
Yes. And just as an aside, do you think you're going to do a Brahma Vihara this summer?
I don't have anything scheduled. I've got one in March, but that one's full right now. There is a Zoom component for it if folks want to. The Zoom allows you to do the 2 guided meditations I do a day, which are like what we've done. And then I do 1 Dharma talk on the Brahma Viharas. And then the folks on Zoom will get interviews every 2 days, I think.
Wow.
So,
and is that data on your website?
It is.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Kate.
you.
Mitchell.
I just wanted to, just in case you didn't see it, Stephen, someone asked in the chat as well, the text chat, if you could talk more about the absolute. So I just wanted to let you know that that was there, just in case you didn't see it.
Yeah, it's helpful if somebody asks a more specific question. What about the absolute would they like to hear more about? Yeah. Alessandra?
Hi there. Thank you for that meditation. You mentioned at one point spiritual bypassing, and the kind of context of that has completely gone out of my head sort of during the course of the meditation. But I was wondering if you could say more about the mechanisms by which that happens, and also sort of what one can do to be vigilant about sort of not going that route.
Mm-hmm. Yes, spiritual bypassing just means that we use techniques of spirituality to avoid contacting something. So there's something unpleasant happening, and rather than accepting and meeting that, we use something to effectively escape. And it's not to say that meditation is bad, but when it's being applied in order to avoid something that's happening in your life, then that can become a problem. So we want to just notice when things are arising, are we running to the cushion to do something that takes us away? Or are we able to be with? And what you can see from this, we can meditatively be with things that are challenging in our life. In fact, we can use those. That's really the focus of my next book, my sixth book, Liberating the Self, is about how we can use these events and vulnerability as our portal to accessing what's absolute while not losing what's conditioned. Because it's that interplay. This is the great lines from the Heart Sutra, that form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. For many years in the Zen tradition, I thought it meant become. Emptiness becomes form. Form becomes emptiness. And the revelation was no, is. Right now, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. So the absolute and the conditioned are completely merged. They can't be separate, except that the absolute doesn't have a birth or death. So that stays, that continues while the conditioned ages and dies. So it's just meeting our life as it's actually presenting rather than using spirituality to avoid, to get around whatever is occurring. Great. David?
Thank you. That's very clear.
You're welcome.
In a meditation where you are directing attention to the absolute, could you say something about this subtle sense of being a subject in proximity to the absolute versus just the experience of the absolute?
What do you mean when you say subject to the absolute?
Like a subject having the experience of the absolute, trying
Okay.
to approach the absolute.
Sure. I get your question. Yeah, there's two ways that we can experience the absolute. We can experience it subjectively, meaning I'm looking from a particular vantage point, whether it's an identity or some other quality, or even we can look subjectively from what we might call no self or absence of self. We're looking at the absolute from here, or an issue from here. That's the subjective viewpoint. The other viewpoint's objective, and that's where the absolute is looking from everywhere at once, including here. So that's a distinction that you'll experience in the absolute. It's not really important which is your experience. One's not better than the other. It's just we want to be accurate about what we're perceiving and how we're perceiving, because it's information that helps us in terms of our own ripening and steeping in the absolute.
But
Does that work?
if you are noticing those,
Mhm.
that is an overlay, right? You're putting an overlay.
No, it's an overlay only if I'm doing it.
Yeah.
If it's happening, there's no overlay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great point. It's an effortless effort, a non-doing doing, as we're fond of saying in the Zen tradition. That work? Great. Shokai?
Yeah, I think the way you guided the meditation and also my experience was very powerful, and especially it gave me the usually you can get some distance between what is hurting you and a sort of stillness and calm after a long time after the event happens. And in this case, I think it worked. It worked very well. Uh, just maybe in half an hour, I don't know. I was able to put this distance between the reaction and the stillness, and I felt this profound stillness quite a lot at the end. So thank you.
Great, you're welcome. And I'll just mention, since no one's got their hand up at the moment, I do have a website, awakeningdharma.org, and I do have a couple of retreats are full this year already. The Brahma Vihar retreat, a 3-week retreat. I have a 2-week jhana retreat that's also full with a wait list. And then I'll be doing 2 awakening retreats. One's going to be a 2-week retreat, last week of August, first week of September. And the other will be a 3-week awakening retreat in October. They'll both be here in Michigan, where I live, for my convenience. And those have not been announced yet on my website, so they'll be going up shortly. And I'm doing smaller and smaller retreats, so they're going to be very limited retreats. I just find since I interview daily, it lets me work with people more closely and seems to impact the retreat positively. So that's what's going on. And then you can look me up on Amazon if you're interested in books. I've got books on demystifying awakening and also on Buddha's heart, which are the heart practices. And then the newest book, Liberating the Self, will be out in March sometime, by mid-March, I think. Anybody else with a final comment or question? Warren.
Yes, hello. I find that your meditations are in some ways saying what others have been saying in different ways. Very powerful. And certainly this morning, feeling the tension of an adverse situation didn't last very long. I actually got right into the stillness pretty quickly, and it settled me almost, well, I wouldn't say immediately, but very, very quickly. And I think that was a very useful exercise to do, to remind us of what we can do and keeping track of those times when the irritated from some condition or some situation that we find ourselves in many times.
Right.
So just wanted to say that I'm very happy to always sit with you, and I'm always learning something new and refining other things, which is really quite remarkable, in my opinion. So thank you so much, Stephen.
Great. You're welcome. David?
Thank you, Sensei. I really appreciated that. While I was meditating or attempting to meditate, the plumber came and I had to deal with that. made a lot of noise. So I feel like I'm gonna have to go to the video and do this all again. My question, I'm at a place where I really am looking for ways to deepen my practice and grow my practice. And I'm in Los Angeles. I haven't been directly affected by the fires, but I feel after this session that I'm still
that I brought up the vulnerability and sat with things that were uncomfortable to me, and I still feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
And I find that in LA and in the world now, it's this practice of acceptance isn't something that we can leave on the mat. It's like
Right.
many hours of the day, and I'm wondering if you can just speak on that, or any insight you have on how to engage with the practice for a full 24-hour cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, I mentioned before, you might have missed that if you can imagine you have a remote control controlling time and you want to employ it, that's a sign you're in resistance.
Yeah.
So just look for that when it's like, I want to change this moment. That's the key to start repeating acceptance internally. And you feel yourself land more fully and open. Because when we first meet it, we feel very contracted, right? We're bracing. Then we start opening and feeling more relaxed. And that's when we start getting in touch with the suffering, the discomfort, the dukkha of the situation. And as we do that, then staying with it without resistance, then the tenderness, that tender love of the absolute will come and support us in being with it. So these are great off the cushion, and I detail all these in the new book, so you can always get that as well when that comes out. But this recording, and I've got extensive videos on my YouTube channel. I've had people even have Kensho watching some of the guided meditations, so they have their own potency, which is baffling to me, but it is what it is. So you could explore those as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great, welcome. Well, it looks like we're at the end. Thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. Chloe, thanks so much for organizing this, and to Zen Peacemakers.
Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.